Hi everyone, welcome back. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. So this is going to be published on Sunday. You guys are watching it on Sunday, but I actually recorded this on Friday because I'm going to be really busy this weekend and I won't have time to record. So I wanted to get this out to you guys nonetheless, okay? So this video is going to be about the Q4 metrics for all the miners. See how they did, how well they did, how bad some did. And we're going to look at regular metrics, and we're going to look at also the same metrics as weighted averages. So some things are going to get a little bit more weighted averages than others, but we'll get through all of this and we'll show you guys which ones are performing really well, which ones are kind of lagging a little bit as well, okay? So as always, you guys know the drill here. This is not financial advice for entertainment only. Do your own research. And I'm invested in following coins and companies for full disclosure. These are all metrics that are based on reported data that we do have for them, okay? So let's get into the numbers here really quick here. We'll try to get through this relatively quickly because there is a lot to go through. So I'm going to try and go through like the top 5 of each category here, and then you guys can see the rest of them as well, how they performed. This way we'll save a little bit of time, and that way it's not, 30, 40 minutes long of a video, because there is a lot of metrics here. So first one to start out with here is quarter over quarter hash rate growth. We're looking to see how much they grew from Q3 basically to Q4 on this one. So Riot came in at number 1 with 4.1 exahash growth over the prior quarter. Marathon at 3.3 exahash growth. CleanSpark at 2 exahash growth in that quarter. And then we got Cypher, also did really well, 1.8 exahash, and TerraWolf 1.26 exahash. Right, those two have been growing really well. They're kind of new to the markets as well. They started pretty much mining, I would say somewhere around the middle to the to the 3/4 of the year in, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so that's kind of how those guys are. Then you can see the stats for the other guys here. The worst ones that were actually down was Iris. Iris had to return a lot of miners in Q3. That's why they're down a little bit here. Well, down a lot actually. Mawson, same thing. Hive, same thing with, well, for them it was more or less with the GPU miners, right? Those were down along with Hut 8. So those are no longer producing as well as they had before because we had the upgrade to the Ethereum network, which went from proof of work to proof of stake. Okay, that's the reason for those guys there. Okay, next is going to be quarterly over year to date hash rate growth. And we got Riot is at number 1 with 5.33 exahash, followed by CleanSpark at 3.89 exahash, followed by Marathon with 3.1 exahash. Then we got Cypher 1.8 and Bitfarms at 1.8, also a little bit less than that. Then we got TerraWolf along with them. So those guys have done really well as far as growing in the fourth quarter into the third quarter as well. Then the lagger here is Hive, along with Hut's up a little bit here, but Hive is down because of Ethereum mining is no longer possible, and they were using that as BTC equivalents, you could say, for that reason. Okay, next is going to be year-to-date hash rate growth added. So this was basically from the beginning of January all the way to the end of December now. So you can see here Riot grew the best at 6.2 exahash. They increased by that amount, which was fantastic for them. CleanSpark came in at number 2 with 4.14 exahash, which was also really good for them. Marathon came in at 3rd, 3.5. They had some issues obviously over the year. Mount Harding facility had issues with them. They had a hard time getting miners energized and just delays upon delays. That's why they came in 3rd. Then you got Bitfarms at 2.1 exahash. So that's number 4 spot, followed by Cypher 1.8. Cypher installed a lot towards the end of the year. They weren't really mining that much. They were mining with a joint venture. Those coins were being reported as assets instead of actual revenue. Okay, on those. Then again, you got Hive down 837 petahash roughly. And the rest is what it is right there. Next, we got quarter Bitcoins per exahash. So how much did they mine for the quarter of Bitcoins and the exahash that they ended up the quarter with, right? So Cypher actually came in number 1 here with 366 Bitcoins per exahash. This was really good. They were pretty efficient on that. Then you got Bitfarms at 328. Also, Cypher, one thing to mention is they really didn't start. If we look at Cypher here really quick, I'll show you guys what I mean by it here. Cypher, you can see November or December is when they reached 1.84 exahash for their own mining. Prior to that, they were mining with a joint venture. So whatever they mined there was only a partial of it, and that was going into assets. So ideally, I should have probably just only really you should have used December numbers here, the 225, instead of for the full quarter there, which kind of improved their numbers based on this. But it is what it is. We'll see what the numbers come out as when we report for Q1 of this year as well. Okay. Let's see here, back to quarterly. So you guys are aware of that. Bitfarm's really efficient here, 328 Bitcoins per exahash. Hive came in at third at 322. Still, nonetheless, they were no longer mining Ethereum, but they still came in pretty efficient here. DMG 322, and then Iris at number 5 spot at 316. Some things to note here. The ones that grew a lot, like Riot, CleanSpark, and Marathon, you can see that Riot, Marathon, and CleanSpark are towards the bottom end, more or less. That's because of the growth they had. Whenever you have huge growth, you're going to have a hit on efficiency because the miners that are being installed are not typically running for a full 30, 31 days in a month. That's going to have a hit on efficiency. So that's why they're down there. Okay. That's for those. Quarter BTC mined. And we got Riot coming in at number 1. Marathon coming in at number 2 with 1,562. Riot coming in at number 1 with 1,689. CleanSpark 1,531, right? Pretty close, third to second spot. Bitfarms came in at 1,435. So these guys are kind of like the, at least in Q4, were like the top tier miners. And you got the second tier, which would be like Hive, Iris, and Hut 8, with Hive having 784, Iris with 722, Hut 8 it was 698. And then you got the third tier miners like TeraWolf, 378, DMG with 274, Cypher 225, DigiHost 192, and so on. Those guys are the smaller ones. Now, the ones that have been growing quite nicely here recently is TeraWolf and Cypher. So those guys should get pushed up into the second tier, I would imagine, in Q1 numbers, okay? But we're looking at Q4 right now as it is. Now, quarter BTC per million shares. The way I'm doing this is taking the BTC that they mined for the quarter, the number of shares they had, basically, I think I'm using the shares that are out right now, and dividing it by that, and we're getting the numbers here, which is BTC per million shares. So each million shares, the higher the number is, the better it is, right? It also tells us a little bit that the miner might be undervalued based on where they are, and it also means that it doesn't really tell us that they're undervalued. It tells us that they are performing much better than some of their peers based on the less shares that they have outstanding, and the better their performance is, the better the miner they are. Basically, potential for upside potential is much higher for them, okay? So CleanSpark came in at number 1 with 19.63, Iris at 13.13, so they came in second, Hive in number 3 spot with 10.413, Riot number 4 spot with 10.115, Marathon at number 5 spot, 9.339, and Riot and Marathon have been doing quite a bit of curtailing. That also affects their BTC production as well. They get credits and electricity for that. Then you got Moss and DigiHost, Bitfarms, Hut 8, TeraWolf, DMG, Cypher, and Sphere 3D towards the bottom end. There were 3 miners that didn't report the metrics. I should have probably prefaced this in the beginning. I forgot. But the miners that didn't provide their Q4 numbers so far are Argo, Bit Digital, and Core Scientific. So those are excluded from this list right now. Okay. As far as growth left per petahash or exahash, however you want to look at it, this is where they were at the end of Q4 and how much growth they have still left going for them. So at that time, Marathon still has about 11.6 exahash growth left to them, whereas CleanSpark has about 9 exahash, right? We just heard that story from CleanSpark that they're going to be buying 45,000 of the S19 XP miners. That definitely jumped them up here for the remainder of this year, basically. Bitfarm still has 2.7 exahash left. They're in third spot. Iris at 2.6 exahash, fourth spot. And Riot is pretty close to being fully utilized with 2 exahash roughly left to install. You got TeraWolf at 2.03 exahash, Sphere at 1.2, Cypher 1.2 as well, Marathon at 1.1, Hive at 909 petahash, Hut 8 at 684, DigiHost at 391, and DMG at 151. So you can see how this is all going to shape out going forward into this year as well. So the ones that have the most growth are obviously the ones with the highest number here. Okay. Next, we're looking at compensation per revenue. Lower is obviously better. Not sure why Sphere 3D came in negative. If we look at Sphere 3D, let's take a look at their numbers really quick while we're at it here, just to kind of see what's going on here. So compensation per, let's see here, where was it? There it is. Came in at negative 110. For the year, it came in at 407, but the reported 1,117 basically by revenue, general administrative compensation. That's how we're getting the percentage rate. They reported 24.739 million in general and administrative compensation. If we use the last 3 quarters, Q1, Q2, and Q3, combine that, we would actually have to subtract 1.5 million from Q4, which is kind of weird. Okay, so that's kind of how that's looking at right now, so you guys can see what I mean by this data here on this one. Okay, so that might be an oddity there. That might be off. Not sure on that one. DMG came in really good at 20.39. DigiHost at 28.28. Mawson was at 34.59. And then we got Hive at 40.54. And then we got Bitfarms at 46.16. And then CleanSpark at 48.62. And then Riot. I mean, you can see this kind of line kind of going up a little bit. But overall, it looks like between 40 and 50, it seems like to be the consensus between these miners. And then we got Cypher, which is way up there at 625% because they were pretty much stuck for the year at 100 petahash while they had a bunch of expenses to pay their overhead for employees, everything else. That's why they are where they are right now, okay? On that one. Next, we look at price to book ratio. Marathon came in at number 1 at 4.992. TerraWolf at 2.4. Hive at 2.145. Riot at 1.98. Cypher 1.92. Those are the top 5 right there. And then you got Hut 8 at 1.26. DigiHost. Followed by Bitfarms, Iris, CleanSpark, DMG, Mawson, and Sphere. With price to book ratio, I believe it is best if they are lower here, but these are the ones that are being priced better right now as far as their market cap is concerned and everything else. They're doing a lot better than everybody else. So I would expect these guys down here, especially, you can see Sphere, well, I mean, you could say Iris, Bitfarms, CleanSpark, these guys are way down here, and that's because there is other news out there, right? Sphere is only at 100 petahash, or was stuck at 100 petahash. They haven't been able to grow really well. That's kind of why they are where they are. Okay, current ratio. So current ratio is as follows. Marathon is at 10.629. So that is really good. They have plenty of cash to pay off their current debts. Hut 8 is at 8.151, which is really good as well. Riot is 3.648. DMG is at 3.04, Hive is at 2.861, CleanSpark is at 2.861, DigiHost is at 1.83, and then you got Sphere, Cypher, Bitfarms, Boston, and Iris and TerraWolf down towards the bottom here. And there's 2 ways to look at this one here. Current ratio is if you have a too high of a score, you're not really efficient with your cash, possibly, right? That's one way to look at it. And if you have too low, well, you're going to be in trouble as well because you're not going to be able to pay off your debts as it is. So you kind of want to be in that kind of sweet spot here between, I would say, maybe Riot and Bitfarms at the very end here, as far as, that's kind of the sweet spot where you want to be, where you're pretty efficient with the cash that you do have on hand. You're not holding it, because if you are holding cash, well, a lot of these guys are also holding HODL position, which is Marathon on Hot 8. The only good thing is when Bitcoin price goes up, that's obviously appreciation value for them. If they were holding cash, this would be a bad thing. So there's a couple ways you can look at this way, okay? Next is current over current ratio, to take a look to see if the miners actually improved from the prior quarter. And you can see here that Marathon did improve by 5.36%. Then everybody else kind of had a decrease a little bit. Iris was pretty much flat on it. Mawson went down a little bit here, 0.029, and then TerraWolf went down 0.04. Bitfarms went down 2.25. DMG went down 2.28. Riot went down 8.07. Hive went down 8.88. CleanSpark went down 9.82. And you got Hut 8 there, Cypher, DigiHost, and Sphere 3D going down, way down there at 5.499, sorry. Okay, so Marathon has done the best job as far as improving their current debt to ratio from one quarter to the next quarter, from Q3 to Q4. Next is debt to equity ratio. So this one's also pretty important there. Lower is better on this one. DMG came in at number 1 with 0.083. Riot came in at number 2 at 1.106. DigiHost came in at 3rd with 0.115. Hut 8 came in 4th with 0.175. Cypher came in at number 5 spot, with 0.220. Then you got Bitfarms, Sphere 3D, CleanSpark, Hive, Iris, Mawson, TerraWolf, and Marathon. Marathon has at 2.097. Marathon has a lot of debt that's going to be convertible debt, I believe, which is going to convert over into shares in 2026, I believe. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe it's 2026 when that happens. In the meantime, they're only paying 1% interest rate on that money that they have. So that's not too bad, but that is going to be obviously something that they're going to have to deal with in 2026. Next is debt to equity ratio difference. So again, we're looking at Q3 versus Q4. Mawson is actually down a little bit here, 0.2. Bitfarms is also down 0.91, so that's good. DigiHost is down 0.002. Iris is flat. CleanSpark's up a little bit here at 0.02. Riot at 0.023 along with DMG. Then you got Hut at 0.039, and then Hive, TerraWolf, Cypher, Sphere 3D, and Marathon. All right. So based on all of that, we look at it as total score 7 metrics, which is for growth, basically. We're looking at the growth separately. We're also looking at the financials separately. And then we combine those two to get one score for all of those. So based on the growth metric, CleanSpark came in at number 1 with 26. Riot came in at number 2 spot with 31. Marathon at 33 on the 3rd spot, followed by Bitfarms at 38. Then you got Cypher at number 5 spot with 54. Then you got Iris at 55, TerraWolf at 58, Hive at 71, DMG at 76, DigiHost is 81, Hot 8 at 83, Sphere at 88, and Mawson came in at the very end here at 94. And that's just based on the growth part of it. Things look a little bit differently when you look at the actual financials of them. So when we look at the financials part of it, you can see here that Riot came in at number 1 along with DMG at 38. Then you got DigiHost with Bitfarms at number 2 spot with 45 points. Hive came in at number 3 spot with 47, followed by Marathon at 48. Then you got Hut 8 at 49, Mawson at 50, CleanSpark at 55, Iris at 56, TerraWolf at 62, Sphere at 65, and Cypher at 66 for the financials part of it. Okay. Now when we do the total of those 13 metrics, we get these numbers here. So that's a combination of all of them. So we got Riot coming in at number 1, 69, right? That kind of makes sense. Riot has been doing a fantastic job here. CleanSpark at 81, along with Marathon. Both of those guys have been doing really well here towards the end of the year. A lot of growth and such things. Bitfarms came in at number 3 at 83. Iris came in at number 4 with 111, followed by DMG 114. DMG is a smaller miner though, however. So I'm interested to see how they grow this year going forward. We haven't seen much growth from them. Hive is at 118, so they're down there. Cypher, along with TerraWolf, is at 120. DigiHost is at 126. Hut 8 is at 132. Mawson at 144, and then Sphere 3D at 153. Sphere 3D is one of the smaller ones with, I think they're up to like maybe 300 petahash right now at the end of the 4th quarter. But they have had a tough time growing, really, for them. Okay, so that's how it all stacks up just based on these metrics. Now, if we add some weights to these metrics a little bit, this is the way that I'm weighing them. Others may weigh them a little bit differently, but this is just kind of the way I'm looking at it. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here. And then these are all the numbers stacked, or all the metrics stacked on top of each other. You can kind of see how they all stacked up here, right? And you get the different, what they all mean here, basically. Okay, so that's how they all stack up. Now, when we look at the weighted metrics, I'm taking the same scores that we got in, but then I'm also applying a metric to them, a weighted metric. So quarter over quarter percentage hash rate, I'm giving it a 0.5 score. Year-to-date percentage hash rate growth, a 0.5 also, so half of the score that they would normally get. Year-to-date hash rate also increase was 0.5. BTC per petahash, I'm giving it a 1, along with growth left. I think those are important as far as metrics are concerned. And then we got BTC mined is 0.5, and then BTC per million shares. I think that's also important because that shows us, again, where there might be higher upside potential with the miners based on the number of shares that they have, how many BTC they mined. You know, that also helps with pricing of those shares when Bitcoin does go up in metrics. So based on these, the 7 metrics that we have for weighted for growth, CleanSpark came in at number 1 with 19. Marathon came in at number 2 with 26.5. Bitfarms came in at number 3 also with 26, or number 2 spot, I guess, 26.5. Riot came in at number 3 spot at 27.5. Then you got Iris in number 4 spot with 33.5, followed by Cypher, number 5 spot at 39.5. And then you got TerraWolf at 42.5, Hive at 45. And And you got DMG, DigiHost, Hut 8, Sphere, 3D, and Mawson towards the end of them all. Okay, so now when we do look at the metrics that are weighted for financials, I'm adding a little bit more here towards the current ratio, debt to equity ratio, price to book ratio, compensation ratio. Those are all 2. And quarter over quarter debt to equity ratio, we're giving it a 1. Quarter over quarter ratio current, we're giving that a 1 as well. So when we look at those things, those stack up this way. You got Riot and DMG at number 1 spot with 60, DigiHost at 71 in the second spot, Hive at number 3 spot with 73. Then you got Hut 8 at 76 with the number 4 spot, and Marathon in the number 5 spot with 80. Bitfarms at 81, CleanSpark at 92. Then you got Mawson at 94, Sphere at 100, Iris at 103, and Cypher at 105, followed by TeraWolf at 107. So those are my kind of weighted numbers that I'm looking at here. You guys might think that certain things should have a different weighted number to them, and that's fair. You know, you kind of look at things that are important to you. These are the kind of things that I think are important to me, at least. Okay. And then when we do a total score of the 13 weighted metrics, we can see here how they all stack up. So we came up with these numbers for the weighted averages, which was Riot came in at number 1 with 87.5. Marathon came in at number 2 with 106.5. Bitfarms number 3, 107.5. CleanSpark number 4 with 111. DMG with 114.5. Excuse me. Hive at 118. I guess that would be the number 6 spot. Then you got DigiHost, Hut 8, Iris, Cypher, TeraWolf, Mawson, and Sphere 3D towards the end of them all. When we compare it to our regular metrics, which are down here, these are not the weighted metrics. You can see here that Riot, regardless if you look at it at the weighted metrics or not, they came in number 1 here. CleanSpark for the weighted metrics came in at number 4 spot, whereas here came in number 2 spot. Marathon switched here from the weighted metrics from 2nd spot to 3rd spot. Bitfarms went from the 4th spot to the 3rd spot. Right? But you still have basically the same 4 in the 4th spot all together as well. Okay, then we got Iris, DMG, Hive, Cypher, TeraWolf, DigiHost, Hut 8, Moss, and Sphere 3D. So these are kind of backwards looking metrics that we look at just to see how the miners have performed quarter over quarter and year to date, more or less. And this kind of gives us an idea as far as which ones are still doing really well. And then we also look at the metrics that we have here for month to month that we just did a video on it previously here. So that kind of helps, at least helps me out, figure out which miners are worth investing in, which ones are growing, right? We really want to see growth in these miners, especially as we get closer to the halving event, because then they're going to get cut in half as far as our production is concerned. So the miners that are not growing right now will have a reduction in BTC generated or earned or produced each month that they're not growing their hash rate, all right? So important part is I want to see growth, I want to see consistency, I want to see efficiency, and I want to see good financial, I guess you could say structures, not really structures, but financial management, right? I want to see them using that capital that they're getting in from Bitcoin being produced, being used towards growing. I don't want to see that just being used there to, for me at least, I don't want to see them using it to stay in a hodl position while they're not growing. That's just me. Okay. So that is it. Let me know what you guys think of all of this. There are a lot of metrics in here. I'll try maybe post some of these metrics here on Twitter or something like that after this video goes live. So sometime next week, you guys might see these numbers start showing up in on Twitter possibly. Okay. But otherwise, these metrics are always going to be available to my Patreon members. Those will be published probably today, which is Friday. You guys are going to be watching this on Sunday, so they're going to get this a little bit early. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think of all of this. Do you guys agree? Do you guys not agree? And we'll leave it at that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. And there was something else I was going to say, but I forgot now. Oh, have a great weekend. I hope to see you guys next week on Monday. All right. That's it. Bye.